Hi, pretty. You have such a great Facebook picture. And as a
Oh, thank you.
photographer, it's so important to me that someone has a picture that's bright and in focus. So now
It's great.
you had a situation where like a physical debilitation that really kind of made a real turning point in your life, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So my background's physical therapy, and I spent 4 years in a yoga ashram. And, um, then I had a car accident that necessitated two life-saving surgeries. And then a couple of years later, I found myself in a body that I didn't recognize because the scar tissue from these surgeries actually invaded my whole abdominal area and my hips and my back and my sacrum and twisted my pelvis really far, like 20, 30 degrees offline, because the first thing I noticed, weird, but I was a new mom and, whatever, and my foot was peeling off the floor. Like, in order for your foot to actually
Yeah, when you said that on
peel,
your video about your foot peeling, I was like, no, wait, was she going through like a visual trip? It sounded like an LSD trip, like, oh, it's peeling. But you actually meant,
yeah, I was putting on my makeup or brushing my teeth in the bathroom mirror, and my foot wasn't on the ground. Like, it was, the edge of it was, but it was peeling off because my pelvis had pulled it so far back. I mean, if you're standing and you twist your pelvis, your foot will come off the floor.
okay, okay. But you weren't twisted.
Oh, I was
And,
badly, badly twisted.
but like you weren't consciously twisting.
No, no,
You
no. The
thought you
scar
were being,
tissue. No, the
what?
scar tissue had a hold of those structures, and cause scar tissue shortens and tightens over time. That's what it does. It attaches to different structures and it pulls. So whatever the configuration was, and it was a mass, like it was a network, right? It started to distort my body very badly.
And this was how many years after the accident?
It was a couple of years, about 3 years. Yeah,
Okay, about 3 years.
yeah,
Now you said, were you a physical therapist before this happened? So you had
yeah.
like a working knowledge of bodies and bones and muscles and tendons.
I did, but that at the time really, it wasn't coming to my aid. And I sought out acupuncturists and craniosacral therapists and osteopaths and rolfers and you name it, basically. I went looking and I traveled and I spent a lot of time and a lot of money and the needle didn't move. And I was like, where I was at that time
Now, when you say the
was
needle didn't move, like what wasn't changing?
the position of my pelvis, the pain that I was in, the restrictions that I had, the limping that I had walking, the, all of it, right? If your pelvis, so your body's designed to work where it's supposed to work, and so when the pelvis is that twisted, it's completely unsustainable. Your body has to try to compensate, and that cascade of compensations starts to continue the distortion. So my hip didn't work. I mean, I was limping. I had to lift my leg to get it in the car. Like, just things started to not work. And I started to feel really old when I was 35. Yeah.
Wow, yeah. You had how many surgeries after that car accident?
I had two surgeries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Two
it was
abdominal. Yeah.
abdominal.
Yeah.
Um, and were there any broken bones?
There were no broken bones.
All right, so then you had these surgeries. Things seemed fine, except you were sort of limping and figuring that that would stop, right?
Oh
That
yeah, you always think scar tissue is not that big a deal, right?
yeah,
Everybody who has C-sections and any kind of abdominal stuff, but also anything, like, I have a friend she's married to a physician, and he says there's no minor surgery. There's no minor surgery. And they've really decreased the impact of a lot, but there's no such thing as a minor surgery. Your skin is breached, you scar.
yeah.
Even if it's a little tiny puncture hole, like, that's not minor. So, scar tissue is a much bigger deal than people think, and it, like I said, it tends to attach to structures. I call it unnatural bridges between structures, right? It's an
Oh yeah.
unnatural bridge, and then it starts to pull, And when it pulls, it starts to distort. And we are such amazing creatures in that our adaptation is so high. We're adapting all the time. So we don't notice a little shift. And then we don't notice. That's why I was saying, it was a couple of years went by before I even realized that something was very deeply wrong.
Yeah.
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 So I get it. I mean, I get it. But my job now is to educate people and to wake them up to the fact that things are happening in your body that you don't want to live out.
Right. So now you're a physical. So if you were a practicing physical therapist, this happened to you, and then you started to really notice, like, wait a minute, I'm not healing the way I should be, and you started to look deeper into muscles, tissues, fascia, right?
Yeah, it was really the fascia, and I one of the things that I did, Denise, is that I made a really fundamental shift. And the fundamental shift was from making my body my servant, which is this unconscious way we tend to relate to our bodies. Like we just tell it what to do and it does it, until your 40s, 50s, or 60s. And I was in a place where that wasn't working for me. Like it clearly, I couldn't tell my body what to do because one time I was doing yoga, and instead of the stretching experience, I felt internal ripping. And that's really when the alarm bells went off. And so I made a shift from my body being my servant to my body being my teacher. And I just listened, and I went really, really deep with sensation. And I started to learn this language, which is how the body speaks to us in sensation. And so, and if you think about it, like our entire body is bugged. Our nervous system goes practically everywhere. So we could eavesdrop on our gallbladder, or we could eavesdrop on any place in our body that we wanted more information. And we sort of forget that. We tend to think of sensation as skin.
Right.
Yeah, not the internal world. It's sort of like Jacques Cousteau, remember, he sort of opened up an entire world beneath the surface of the ocean. And I'm wanting to open up a world beneath the skin of each of us. Like there's a world in there, and it's very rich.
Right. And it doesn't, it's not just reserved for doctors and schools to actually understand it. That doesn't mean that we're all going to go and become our own surgeons, but we all should know what lies under here and
how it feels.
Yeah. Like when you can sort of mentally see what's going on, it allows you to be able to, communicate with it, handle it, feed it what it needs, massage it where it needs to, because you have that. It's with anything in life, right?
Yes.
When you understand about, the roots of a plant, and when it's dry, when you feel the dirt in your mind, we've seen what dry roots look like. We don't have to see them to know. When we feel the dirt, we know, oh, those roots are dry. When I put water, it's going to help the roots, even though I don't see them. But it's because we, all had a little botany class in health in school for 6 weeks or something,
Yeah, and it's if most people walk around sort of illiterate about their own language, their own body sensation language, and I was desperate. I didn't take this journey because I thought, oh, this is interesting. It was interesting because I was so desperate, right? Yeah. So I followed the breadcrumbs and learned the language and became a lot more fluent. And, the cool thing about it is that it's a never-ending inquiry. Like I just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I feel like, that is giving me so much access to a sense of health and wellness. I say that, people think when they're in the car, they're in the driver's seat. But I see a lot of people, because they're not literate, they're actually in the trunk. And I want to take them from the trunk to the driver's seat, because the experience in the trunk is that it's dark, and you can't sense where you're going, and you don't have access to a lot of things. You certainly can't control where the car goes.
Right.
I've developed my own bodywork system, so I tend to work from that. Yeah,
So
so
tell me, I'm fast, being that I married a guy from New England, big Patriots fan. And when you're a big Patriots fan, I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, you're a big Tom Brady fan. If you're a big Tom
yes.
Brady fan, he's all about the fascia,
Yeah.
and we watched a documentary that he did sponsored by Facebook, called Tom versus Time. And it shows, like, if there were 4 episodes, and every one of them you see him in his room on his table with his physical therapist exerciser guy, and he's doing these massagey mushy things, and like, you don't actually, the guy is like not cut, he's not big and ripped, but boy, he is like loose and healthy,
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
the
It's
parts
all,
are
it's all about the movement, Denise. It is all about the movement. I mean, so when you think about, I love what you're saying. I love what you're saying because, if you think about little kids, right, in their bodies, they have a lot of moving parts. And then their parents have fewer moving parts. And then their parents have even fewer moving parts. And the fascia is the thing that starts to define movement because it's restrictive in nature. It doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to
right.
be. Like the way that we hold as a protection from fear, from pain, from whatever, right?
Yeah.
We're actually gluing our moving parts together and we don't know it. That's part of what I teach people. So where you were going with this is, with my clients, how do I make them aware? And it's not just random fascia. There are patterns underneath, right? There are things that link together. And when you make somebody aware of and with me, it's not just hands-on movement. I teach people the design of their body. And when you can make a distinction, oh, this is how my foot goes, and this is how my foot really wants to go, and then training your body into alignment,
Nice.
right, into the design,
Right.
frees you, and it starts to unravel those patterns that define you and define your future, like
Yeah.
like massively, right?
Yeah, like a very smooth cement floor that curves around and goes down a little ramp to go to the outside door. And I'm like walking, ticka, ticka, ticka. Apparently the floor had just been cleaned, and I completely fell. I
Oh, wow.
completely, all 5'8" of me. I, I, I just had my little fanny bag around my waist, so I had hands free, and totally down on the side, walked across the street, and I was so impressed at how, like, I didn't feel hurt. But I will say, I kept checking in, right? Like, now I'm
Mm-hmm.
sitting in a chair and I got
Mm-hmm.
4 people working on my hair. So it's
Mm-hmm.
good. I'm sitting, and I understand how the shock of the body, it
Yeah.
holds, and then as things start to relax, then you start to, so actually right now I have a little bit of a headache. I don't normally have headaches, so I have a little bit of a headache, and I'm
Your
starting to
neck.
feel a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cool because, like, I'm kind of admiring it. Like, I didn't break any bones.
Right. When
It's
we fall, yes, exactly. When we fall, what we don't realize is that things move out of their
Yeah,
happy place.
yeah. And
They move out
it's
of their
good
happy place.
that
And
unless you're bleeding or something
or
broke,
is
you
broke.
think
Exactly.
everything's fine. And, living in LA
Exactly.
long enough and getting enough little rear ends here and there to know that, okay, you didn't get cut, you didn't smack something, and you seem fine until 2 days later when you're like, wow, what's this? And
Yep.
it's amazing the what the body will hold. And so I do have a little bit of, my husband, when he comes home today, will be doing some nice little massaging on
There you
me.
go. Yes.
Um, Walking when I can, and stretching if I'm, brushing my teeth, because they want to be used and pulled, because like you said, they can start to shrink
Bind.
and
Yeah, they
bind. That's
bind.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, they bind. Yeah, and so yeah, being self-aware, and like if you can feel it, then you can heal it if you don't know the language, you can't negotiate, like you were saying
Right.
before. Yeah. So this gives you credibility with your body somehow, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what kind of exercises do you know, there's so much now, like, which is kind of cool. We're not just at the Jack LaLanne uh
Right.
era of exercise.
Sit-ups and right, exactly.
Yeah, you know, or the little Jimmy machine. What oh my God. Or my mom with her little bust enhancer machine. Um,
Exactly.
what what are some what are some techniques that you have found, like let's say on the over 40 woman, or you know, over 40 person, that you found to be like really show results?
There's a way in which your body likes to move, and most people are using their body in a way that's actually counter to the design, even though they don't know it. So I teach people, like how to actually live in a body so that no matter what you do, it's sustainable, right? So that they're not like CrossFit. What I find is some people actually go into something like CrossFit where the demand is very high, and their experience with their body is not up to that
Right.
level, right? Or their conditioning is not up to their level. So they'll ask their body to do something their body's not actually ready to do. And like I said, classes, all that stuff is there's nothing wrong with anything.
Yeah, you just,
It's
I mean, you have to
yeah,
take it at your own. You know, I
yeah,
did do CrossFit,
yeah,
and it was a little challenge to myself.
yeah,
And, but I was super smart about it in that I knew I hadn't been exercising or lifting weights. And now I'm in a box in LA with a bunch of 25 to 38-year-old men,
totally.
which was
With the
fun,
ropes and the
you
tires and
know?
everything. Yeah.
And I was actually the best rope climber. Like they
Ah, I
actually
love it.
said, "You make that look easy." I will never forget those words. Oh, put that on my headstone. She made it look easy. Like I don't. And
Right.
I had just been to Italy, and I saw how these women, even though they're, you know, they're not like cut 6-pack, but they're 96 years old and they're walking around with, you
They're
know,
very capable. Yeah. It's the
very
function. Honestly, it's the function, it's the more you're involved in your function and you don't, you're lifting things as a part of your day, or
yes, yeah,
you're integrated into your body, and your body is integrated into your life. And you know, that's really the thing. And so exercise is interesting. I mean, I think that people are over exercising and sort of killing themselves in the name of health, and creating greater binding in their body.
uh-huh,
And then they have to manage it, then they have to
right,
pull in
right,
those foam rollers, and pull in the massages and the chiropractic appointments. And again, nothing wrong with any of those things. Like I think management tools are really powerful,
yeah,
but they don't actually transition you into transformation, which is what I'm about. Like, really, like, let's change the patterns that paint you into the corners. Because when people are, they're exercising, they're just moving the way that they move. I get that, but what if you could figure out a better way to move so that you didn't hurt yourself, so that you didn't, and not even in the short run, I mean the long run, right?
yeah,
And that's the conversation I want to have. Is like, well, how sustainable are you? Because that's really the question these days. Like, sustainability is the question. If you're creating pain in 20 or 30 years that you don't want to live out, or restriction, or whatever, that's the conversation I want to be having with people. Like, do you care about outliving your body? I've seen what that looks like. I've worked in nursing homes. I've worked in hospitals. I had my own body at that door. I would have been. I use the word crippled. Like, I wouldn't have been able to walk 5 years from that place where I was limping and having all that trouble. If I didn't do what I did, I would not be here today. I don't even know what would have happened.
What do you work on yourself? Do you have somebody do the certain fascial work on you, or
No, I work in myself, not so much on myself.
Uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
I've, because I know the design, and it doesn't mean I don't get into some troubles, and I sometimes use management tools, but not very much. I had a woman who had one of those Theracane things, and she's like, she's pushing into her body, and she's like, "Do you have one of these?" And I was like, "No." And she goes, "Why? Do you not need it?" I was like, "No." And I'm 61, and I'll be 61 in a week. And
See, by the way, how I love how awesome, like confident women, like we actually love to give the age that we're gonna be. Like whereas years ago, people couldn't
Yeah.
like, like you're awesome.
Yeah, so we're, like I'm about turning women into ageless goddesses. Like
Yeah.
that is my passion. Like actually being that paragon of energy, vitality, passion, and involvement with life, like hungry for the next moment to like sink your teeth into and like make an impact and feel really alive, even if the impact that you're making is just with the people around you. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't have to be global. Like just the like when you're in your 70s, 80s, 90s, just rocking it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And we can,
Totally,
we
totally. But if you're living your design, right? So if you're in your design, it is built to last. I had back, for my physical therapy training, we had a human dissection thing. And I remember having this like sacred moment of looking at a joint, like, and opening it up and seeing this white glistening cartilage. And I was like, and the fluid that's in the joints has a coefficient of friction near zero. Now, there's nothing in nature that, or any, nothing man-made that comes close to that. So
really, that's
we're
fascinating.
we're built to last. So when people are having, total hip replacements, total knee replacements, total shoulder, all that stuff, I'm like, what we're misunderstanding the design. That's the thing that's going on, is we're misunderstanding it, we're misusing it, and we're expecting it to last when we're running counter to it. And that's just it's against the laws of nature.
But I
Exactly.
I do try and do activities in life that kind of keep me away from having to stop what I'm doing just to work the body.
When my head comes forward, the muscles don't hold it, the fascia does. Okay, so then the fascia has to come from somewhere. You're pulling the collagen from all of these places. That's why I think people's skin gets thinner as they age. Not because the skin inherently loses it, it's because it's being leached, because they're more and more and more dependent on the collagen connective tissue or fascia to hold them in that place. I mean, your body has a hierarchy of needs, and function is king. And if something is needed to hold you up, that's more important than the collagen being in your skin.
Oh, I got you. I got you. So by doing the work that you do to
Reclaim. Yeah.
yeah,
You're reclaiming that. And when you stop using it, your body just knows what to do. It'll break it down, and
right,
then it'll put it back into the system, and then the system will put it where it next wants to be, like your skin.
right, right.
So I think that stairs, for example, are one of those functional things that we have all over the place. And I know people who've bought homes when they're still perfectly capable of climbing stairs, because they think it's an investment in, monetarily, into being able to, like, people are looking for single level homes now.
Oh God.
And I'm like,
You haven't seen my videos, but anyone on my Facebook page, I have something called Finding Free Exercise. And I
yes,
literally get people send me texts when they're at the airport or in a subway, and you have the option of the escalator and the stairs.
yes,
Like
take the stairs. Yeah,
thousands of people now think of me when they see those two options. And in
right.
my head, I have this weird visual that when I take the escalator, I'm getting cellulite, and I'm killing.
There's a motivator.
It's true. It's like I just see my ass get dropped. And so I'm like, Denise, if those stairs were built for a human to take, I should be able to do it. I realize I have a backpack with 50 pounds of camera gear and a carry-on, but that makes it even more. And it's only going to be like what? Like stairs, maybe a minute is like 60 seconds is the most you'll ever have to do. And once I get to that top, I'm like, right on. And everyone goes, oh, well, you're better than me. I'm like, no, you're better than me because you were at the fucking gym this morning at 5:30 a.m. I was sleeping. You know?
Yeah. I think stairs are just such a built-in opportunity to stay, to get your little, just to elevate your heart rate just a little bit. Like your heart really likes that,
Yes.
and your breathing changes and you start to, fuel your body just that little bit. And it's like
the oxygen.
The oxygen, exactly.
Kick out the garbage.
Yep, exactly. All of that. So just be, and using the muscles that you're designed to use, like without elevation, without stairs, like, and when you're in a house with stairs, you use them like all the time. You don't even think about it.
Yeah, and that's the best way to exercise. It's like, I got to go get my kids' clothes and I got to come down. How great, you just exercised and you didn't even know it. Well done.
I know, right, exactly. And then the number of times that you can do that in a day, park a little bit further away, or, like,
totally.
Instead of fighting with everybody for the closest spot, like, let's change this ethos, that
you're going to have a tighter ass, park far, sister.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, I have this joke when I'm like setting up my equipment and, a client wants to help me. I'm like, no, this is my only formal exercise. Get out of here. Unless the guy is from the South and they were trained by their parents with ultimate manners to not have a woman have to lift a sandbag. I'm like, okay, just for that motherly instinct of like, I don't want this guy to feel deballed. But in general, most of the actors would listen to me and they're like, all right, she doesn't go up and help.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So cool. This has been so super cool. I really, really, I love diving further into your world of health and just your care for keeping the longevity of us humans and especially women.
The projections of how we're going to age, like the projections are, we could live a really long time given what's happening with science. So if you're not in the driver's seat of this, amazing vehicle, this aspect of nature we walk around in, right? Yep. Then you're leaving it up to chance. And I honestly don't recommend that.
No, it's expensive too.
It's so expensive.
It's expensive to be sick. Whenever people go, oh, well, it's too expensive. I'm like, you know what? Sick is way more expensive.
Yeah. And you know what's even more expensive?
What?
Regret.
Yeah.
Regret is the most expensive thing ever.
That's really cool in an awful way.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah. Like you don't want to get there and go, oh, when I heard that thing, I should have done this.
One Jennifer Hurwitz, I did an interview with her and she's the happily divorced gal.
Oh yeah, sure.
And she's got a book coming out called Woulda, Shoulda, Coulda.
Perfect. Woulda, shoulda, coulda.
In the relationship realm, but it's the same thing with your physical well-being and your health,
If you don't have your body, where are you going to live?
I know.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
This has been super special.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Good. Yeah. All right. You go continue sparkling. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.